Hey everybody, welcome back to Slow Your Roll. Today we're going to look over the aspects or traits of MMOs that you could possibly include in your D&D game, and some of the ways that you would start to do that. So let's get right into it. We're going to start off with respawns. Tons of video games have respawns when your character dies. You just get right back in the fray through different fast travel points or whatever else. So let's get one thing out of the way right away. One of the cool things about D&D, or the things that separate it from other things, is that sometimes when your character dies, your character is dead.
Oh, it's gone.
Your character's dead, and you have to move on from there. So that is something that respawns obviously would take away from. So you'd have to introduce it in a way that's interesting, or maybe not too consistent. Maybe it'd be just like a dream state session for the players where they're going through some weird dream where they continue to fail because maybe you're stacking up puzzles or encounters for them that are actually too hard, giving them the opportunity to try a bunch of new risky things if they were to die. This is a good idea for a group of maybe hesitant players. Maybe hit them with a session that is somehow allowing them to try a bunch of different things they wouldn't normally try, to kind of get them out of their comfort zone and back into playing almost dangerously, because it's fun for everybody. One more thing that's cool you can do with this, like I mentioned, you could test a lot of maybe overpowered things that you would not normally use against your players. This would give you a good opportunity to do that. So again, taking away from your character dying permanently, something you could consider is maybe some other consequences. You could really abuse the exhaustion system this way, or you could maybe even add permanent debuffs to a character. Maybe they lose an eye, and they'll always have disadvantage on perception checks. You know, things like that.
Dark Souls would actually be a really good example of that. Every time you die, you turn more and more like a hollow. So that would be kind of cool to incorporate. The next thing on the list, respawns. Wait, we just did that. No, respawning monsters. There you go. We're going to be talking about what happens if the monsters in your world start to respawn. And it can have a couple of consequences that you might not think of, other than just like more combat. What if the monsters remembered you when you came back? So that way they know you're about to draw your greatsword with your right hand, and they're gonna make sure that you don't do that. It may not work very well with like every single type of monster or location, but respawning monsters works very well for things like undead or maybe even elemental type planes where it seems like rocks, fire, water, earth, all of that are plentiful or just won't ever run out. And this could also be some interesting plot hooks as well. In the game Dragon Quest, monsters are constantly berating the kingdom, and they just respawn and come back, but the people don't. And that becomes really, really detrimental, and it's a very big aspect of the game. So that could be a part of your game.
Another popular trope, especially in a lot of MMOs or open world games, of course, is quick movement across the map. We're talking about like maybe teleport areas or even fast travel systems. They are very prominent in video games.
Very.
So this is something you could incorporate in D&D as well, for sure. This is something to look at, especially if you've got players that you know aren't really going to care for the exploration pillar of D&D. They don't want to traverse across your whole map. They want to get to the action. So here's a couple ways you could do that. You could definitely have teleport areas set up, maybe in like the big cities of your map, or at the very least maybe like the central hub of where you start your players, things like that. And this could be something that has a pretty significant cost if you'd like. You could make it so that the players actually have to shell out some cash to make it happen, or make some genuine sacrifices one way or another. Maybe actual sacrifices. And if you've got an adventuring party that's like level 18, they're strong. You know as a DM that if your players are strong, the world they're living in is also strong. So there could be a bunch of really strong mages in all of the popular cities that kind of man these teleport hubs. And just imagine the impact this would have on your game's economy. Trade would be handled completely differently, with entire trade caravans paying off mages to teleport their goods back and forth, or even just diplomacy between different regions of the map. It could play a very large part in changing the way your world works, so that might be something to keep in mind.
So next up on the list is going to be home teleports. Everyone knows what this is when you play an MMO. You get it as soon as you start the game. It takes about 30 minutes after you use it to cool down, but you got it. It could be a magic item or just an instinct, but this could really help your players to get back and forth to a point A to point B or just their home. And, home is actually pretty subjective. Home is where the heart is, back with all of the rest of the party, or the party's house, literally. If they did have an unlimited home teleport, this could actually help out the kind of players that think of random encounters as bogging down their gameplay. They don't really care that they just got attacked by another mountain lion on their way back to, give the king his crown. They want to give the king his crown. They don't want to fight a mountain lion. So this could just be that way for your party to get through the narrative parts that they like, get rid of some of the mechanical parts they don't. First of all, it doesn't really work this way in games, but it could if you wanted it to. This could be your lifeline, your last teleport out of here. You got one life. You got one hit point left and you're gonna crush that stone and you're out of there. All you said to your party? Bye.
That's good. Kind of like a safety net.
Exactly.
For sure. The next one we're looking at is kind of like a UI or a heads-up display. Almost every video game has some sort of user interface or heads-up display. Kind of gives the player info of the world they need to keep playing the game in a way that makes sense. Okay, so you could have like a scan ability even. One thing I think of when it comes to this is maybe like Fallout with the VAT system, but it'd look a lot different, I'm sure. But it'd be just something that gives your party general insights on what they're doing, maybe like a monster's name and their health, something like that. It could be more in depth if you wanted to make it that way, but it could just be something quick to maybe keep the game going. If you're especially sick of your party being like, are they bloodied yet? Things like that. You could skip that whole thing. It could also be used quick as maybe like an identify ability. So you could pick up a magic item and your player already kind of knows, okay, this is exactly what this is. I've seen this before. It really kind of allows the things that are acceptable metagaming info just away right into the game. Kind of streamlines that whole.
We all know what the boots of lightness do. Do you really want me to take it to the person down the road and ask him what these boots with wings on them do?
Another thing that the UI often lets you do in video games is messaging. So you can like scroll through your friends list and everything else and send them messages, or in MMOs you can even send them mail and items and things like that. One of the ways you can incorporate this for the D&D game, maybe everyone in the party has like an at-will use of sending for characters that they've already met, or for each other, things like that. This is really just going to take away a couple utility spells that your casters didn't want to take anyway. Frees up more room. All of these heads-up display ideas could be incorporated in a bunch of different ways. If you're playing on virtual tabletops, there are some tabletops that already allow maybe like health auras for monsters and things like that. Or there are even apps and overlays to keep track of spell slots and ammunition, things like that too. So you could do that with virtual tabletops. Of course, you can do it in person with tokens or props or anything like that. There's plenty of ways to incorporate it, and your players might really like it.
So if you guys like that list and think adding any of these video game mechanics into your D&D game could add a little bit of fun for next week, well, just wait, because we might even have a part 2 coming your way.
Oh yeah, and if you do end up using any of these and you find it interesting or terrible, either way, leave us a comment below and let us know how it went. Maybe we'll look into that before we put out the next video too.
Yeah, actually, because I would love to know if somebody could actually play test some of these or has a similar type of RPG game that follows rules to these.
Hey everybody, whack, 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 good whack. Please cut that if you're editing this.
No.